Good evening and welcome to the Hugh Hatrick Show with a very, very special guest. It is, of course, Super GT. How are you doing, Steve? It's great to see you.
Yes, hello viewers. A pleasure to be back on the show again. I think the last time I was on it, I was a little bit under the weather a couple of years ago, but good to be back. Good to be
Yeah,
back indeed.
it's fantastic to have you on the show. And in that period of time, my goodness, have we seen incredible things happen in your career. You've gone from being this legendary sim racing gamer on GT7 on YouTube and amassing hundreds of thousands, now up to 940,000 subs, which is fantastic. But you've also been driving real racing cars. So in the last few years, what has been really the kind of the breakthrough moment for you? What has been the most memorable time that you've had?
Yes, quite a few things to cover. But I suppose, as you mentioned there, racing around the Nürburgring, if I had to single one thing out, it's got to be that. This year I've been racing in a GT4 car, fully sponsored in the NLS series. That has been absolutely incredible. That's one of the best things I've ever done. We drove the car for the first time at Portimao in February this year, and as soon as we left the pit lane, it was like, wow, okay, this is the real deal. This is going to be an amazing season ahead. And so, going from making Forza videos, Gran Turismo videos, let's say 5-6 years ago on a controller, to then getting a sim rig and a wheel, and improving, and then now being able to race for real. It's been quite a journey. It's been incredible, and hopefully it can continue.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have to say we've been riveted in watching your shows, and I know many a time when you've been that busy that you haven't made as many videos as you used to, but now you're back live streaming a lot more, and it's back to kind of watching you with the way that you can race, and also you have you can not only race hard and do well in the races, but also commentate on what's happening. I love when you go around a corner and someone in front of you will have turned right when you're going around a left-hand bend. And you'll say the idea is when you go around the right hander, turn right, turn the wheel right. It's you have that ability to not just drive, but to think above it and strategize, which is really good. I suppose what has been the kind of the most kind of crazy situation that you've been in the last few years now that you've got your links with Quadrant, with driving with Jimmy Broadbent. Give us a list of some of the things that have stood out for you as well.
Yeah, there has been quite a few crazy moments. I think you mentioned Lando there in Quadrant. We had a video a couple of years ago driving around Wilton Mill kart circuit in a 1v1 race with Lando Norris. And I mean, that's pretty surreal. You don't really, if you look on YouTube, there's not really anything like that where someone just has a 1v1 with an F1 driver. So that was pretty crazy. That one was pretty unreal. That was the first time I met him as well. Wow. So it was good to meet him. Then to make that video's done really well. So that was great. But yeah, driving with Jimmy and Misha at the Nürburgring this year has been great. This year and last year, actually, we've driven 2 years now. I mean, I can't really single out a moment, but it's just been great. There was a moment actually. It was halfway through last year when we were just getting our licenses. We did a couple of taxi laps, myself, Misha, and Jimmy, all three of us in the car, but rotating who's driving. And it was just a really funny experience. I think the video is out on YouTube somewhere. Yeah. But it's good to get to know my teammates and scare them a little bit because I was driving on about 2 hours of sleep and pushed a little bit too hard in a couple of the corners. But that was a really good way to get acquainted with them and the track together all in one moment.
Yeah. Because I remember a few years ago from our last interview, you had just driven a McLaren. I think it was like a Group 3 car, and it was on the Top Gear test track. You did that, and that was a big breakthrough day because you never driven a car as powerful as that. And then now you're doing quite a lot of different races. Do you think you're going to get to a point where maybe there'll be a few more races and I don't know if you do the go-karting, but is your hope that you'll be able to have a full year of racing quite soon?
It's really hard to say what the future holds. The last few years have kind of been a bit of a wave, and you kind of ride it and hope it continues forever. I hope so. I think there's potential for more. I'd be surprised if Bilstein pulled the plug and didn't want to continue this program. this year's been an amazing year. I think we can have another amazing year next year. We've got a bit of unfinished business with the Nürburgring 24 hour, which was a disappointment in many respects. I mean, I got banned from actually competing because of a yellow flag infringement, which
That was
was
unfortunate.
absolutely fair enough.
Yeah.
But it was called off because of fog after 7 hours, and we finished second, didn't have a chance to go for first. So lots of things there that kind of stacked up. So I think we'd want to go again and try that. But like you say, yes, driving that McLaren GT4, that was in end of 2019, I think.
Yeah.
Around the Top Gear test track, GT4 car, driving, at speed for the first time. And I'd like to think I'm a slightly better driver since then. And you learn a lot when you get to the Nürburgring and you surround yourselves with professional drivers. You really learn a lot about technique and how to drive quickly and how to race quickly. So it's been a journey. I think hopefully we can continue. I think there's more years in it.
Well, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's more to come.
Well, we're definitely rooting for you. We'd love to see you do it full time, maybe even get into those touring cars. I think you'd be good in the British touring cars. That would be quite fun. Would you ever fancy something like that?
It would be great to do a British Championship. Obviously, racing in the Nürburgring, I think, is the best track in the world.
Yeah.
But I think something like British GT would be incredible.
Yeah.
GT cars, GT3 cars, GT4 cars on the same grids, multi-class, 4 or 5 or 6 different UK circuits. I think they go to Spa as well some years. Something like that would be absolutely amazing. Obviously, it's not an easy thing to do. GT racing costs hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. So it's not cheap. But it's just, trying to convince a sponsor that they should spend their money.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I think there's a new way now. With a following, you can post a video, and that sponsor can be immediately broadcast to hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
So it's a new way of getting attention on a brand, if that's what they want, which is obviously what sponsorship is for. So yeah, there's definitely potential out there. We'll just have to work out how to go about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, from going from sim racing and then going to the track and driving these cars like GT4 cars, was there anything that you suddenly thought, my goodness, that's quite a big jump, or anything that surprised you about the difference in technique that you had to use in order to drive a real racing car from sim racing?
You know what? I found it easier than I thought it would be. It's hard to get the professional level of pace when you've got the factory drivers. Those guys are supremely fast. It's hard to get on that level, but I think let's say around a Grand Prix circuit, and maybe I'm 1 second off per lap, which isn't too bad. I think that's actually quite a good pace to be at, obviously with room for improvement. But jumping into the car for the first time around Portimao back in February, yes, it wasn't, I wasn't driving perfectly, but it wasn't too bad. I think most people could probably jump into a car like that and be like, actually, this feels familiar. Obviously, you got the G-force and stuff like that, but if you've played a sim quite a lot and you understand the braking points and how to lift off the brake and when to get on the power and which gear to be in, I think that actually goes a long way. You're not going to be perfect, but it does help out quite a lot.
Yeah. Now, I'll quickly just give a brief to the chat.
Yes.
We've got lots of people in the chat asking questions, which is great. We don't yet have the facility to do super chats. I'm not yet monetized, although we have grown the channel quite a bit in the last few years. So if you do enjoy the content, then it'd be great to subscribe. And Super GT's YouTube link is in the description as well. So if you haven't already subscribed to Super GT, which I'd be very surprised if you haven't already done so, the link is there to be able to do that too. But now you've met some incredible people in recent years, one of which was the Stig from the Top Gear, the old Top Gear. And you did a wonderful video comparing your lap times on these very good simulators. What was that like? Can you tell us a bit more about the Stig as well, and what he was like, Ben Collins?
Yeah, this was a couple of months ago. Met Ben Collins. He approached me about, he was launching his sim racing channel at the time and wanted to get a couple of videos. And I was more than happy to head down to Sim Motorsport in Brands Hatch. Had a session with him, and it was interesting because he's quite an old school racer. He's I think he's the generation before sim racing, really. And so he self-admittedly would say that he struggled with the sim racing. He's, I think this is something that happens quite a lot. You get drivers who are they don't do much sim racing, so they really rely on the feel of the car, which you don't obviously get when you're on the sim. So they struggle a little bit when it's virtual and not real. But he's a great guy. He's got a lot of stories to tell. He's really interesting person to have a conversation with. He's the kind of person you go to a pub with, and you could be there all night, asking so many questions about his career and the things that he's done. Obviously, he was on Top Gear, I think, for 9 years. As the Stig. It's a long time. He's driven so many cars, done so many different things. But yeah, he was good. It was good company, and actually, he was pretty handy on the sim. He understands racing. It was just a case of can he translate it into that sim rig on that day.
It was really good to see the comparison, to see how you drove and then how he drove, and then kind of learning from each other. And you were giving him tips, and he was talking to you about setups, and it was fascinating to see how it works. And I mean, I think what I found since talking to people like John Cleland, who have competed in racing, they're incredibly formidable characters. I think because they're obviously at their best, aren't they? And they've got to perform all the time. And how did you find? Because you're a natural, you've shown through your own pace that you can win events and get very good times. Did you find that it must have been very interesting, just hearing how these other people drive? What's been some of the most interesting people that you've met in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I do think racing drivers have a certain attitude, a certain way of thinking, a certain way of life, almost just the way that they speak, the way that they hold themselves, trying to be professional at all times. That's something that I've learned a lot of. Last year we did a Bilstein event, and I had an entire day where Maro Engel was kind of free to tutor me. So he's a Mercedes AMG factory driver, drives GT3 cars.
Wow.
He's the production car lap record holder at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So obviously a very good driver, very quick. He races DTM now, races NLS, races Mercedes all around the world. But just his professionalism, just so many things you can learn from a driver like that in a day. Just how they, I don't know, it's like motorsport has to become your life. Just your diet, the way that you approach life, the way that how seriously you take everything, just trying to be professional, trying to, motorsport, you realize, is so much more than just being quick on the track. You have to speak to your engineer, remember their name so that you can come back to them later and talk to them about the data or whatever it is. It's just about building relationships, and there's so many elements to motorsport, and someone like him you learn a lot from. So there's definitely been a lot of people, you put yourself in the paddock, put yourself at events like Goodwood or the British Grand Prix, things like that. And you learn a lot. I do think that motorsport is one of those industries where you kind of just have to be in the mix of it, and that's when you learn things.
I know it does seem like when you speak to people at the top of their game, isn't it? It's a different life, and it's a different the professionalism of how and the standards they have to keep to is really takes it to a new level, isn't it? And as you say, you've got to be around that and live that. The motorsport has to be living and breathing to make it all come about. Now, I'll quickly ask a question from Darwin, he's been wanting to ask a question on lots of comments. So I'll say, he says, when are you going to do a video about F1 2024?
Yes, good question. Every year I play the F1 game. I normally make one video on it or two, and then, I mean, I don't really like the F1 games. The way that they play, the physics, they feel a little bit light. It's a weird one, the F1 game, because I love arcade games and I love sim games and I love Simcade, whatever you want to call it. But F1, I don't know, it just feels it's in this weird area where it doesn't belong to any of those categories. I can't quite describe it.
It can feel a bit floaty, doesn't it? It feels a bit floaty and not always connected, I find.
Yeah,
when I'm playing.
there's a real disconnect between what you feel and what is happening. It's a
Yeah.
very strange sensation on that game. But to answer his question, I don't know. Maybe soon. I have been meaning to make a video on it. I do need to kind of just maybe install it, see what I think, do some online lobbies, and something will happen. People like
You
to
always
crash
have great
online, don't
fun.
they?
Yeah, you always have great fun in the multiplayers. Normally, when you do your video with that, I always remember watching the F1 games, and people will be spinning around everywhere or ghosting out, and you'll make good comments on what it was like, and you'll end up winning a race from 12th on the grid or something because everyone else crashes off, and or there's crazy damage and all sorts of things that go on. So it is good fun. That we've got Flash Dagger in the comments here. We've got and we've also got Woody Boy, and we've got Arkies, we've got Rue, and we've got many more. We've got one,
So many
YouTube viewer.
legends. Loads of
Yes,
legends in the chat.
all the fast guys are all here. It's great. We've got Dutchy and Simon. And no, it's great to see you all, and really appreciate everybody watching tonight and commenting. And will put many of your questions to Steve here just now. But Steve, you've done a lot of different games, a lot of different types of racing. Do you, or have you had a kind of mentor or a kind of racing driver that you thought this is who I would kind of like to emulate?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think in my mind, I'm always on my own path to try and succeed in my own way, but there's definitely people you can take inspiration from. I'm into my 30s now, and therefore I take a lot of inspiration from Lewis Hamilton because he's 39 now.
Yeah, he'll be he's 10 years younger than me.
Yeah, he's 39 now, and he's still like delivering at a top level. World-class athlete still at age 39, which isn't easy to do.
Yeah.
And so you look at someone like him and you think, okay, right, it's possible to still be the top of your game, aged 39, physically, mentally delivering for sponsors and going to all the events and doing everything. So someone like him, you can't help but be inspired by someone like Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
I would say that perhaps more relevant to the path I'm on with GTE racing, you definitely look at, let's say, like Mara Engel or these factory drivers for the likes of BMW, Porsche. Kevin Estra is a driver that I love. He's a Porsche factory driver. He drives the Grello at the Nürburgring in NS. He drives the LMDH in WEC. But then you could even look at some of like the bronze-rated drivers who are doing really well in British GT and in WEC as well. So there's lots of inspirations out there. There's lots of drivers who are like in a good position, regular drives who are just really professional. And those are the guys I look up to.
Yeah. I have to say, I was at the Silverstone Classic Grand Prix weekend a few weeks ago, and they had the WEC cars there at the end on the Saturday afternoon, and they sounded great. Actually, they were amazing, and the amount of speed they can take into the corners. I mean, I know that they had an F1 demo as well of the current Mercedes car, but I was pretty impressed watching the WEC cars. They do look magnificent. Now, we've had a question as well. Now, I'm trying to remember who it was who had written it, but it was basically saying, is there a Super GT soundboard? I think it was maybe Dutchy, because he's maybe looking to see if he could use some of your voices for his StreamYard or his what it'll be Streamlabs for his YouTube. Do you have sounds that you can give out?
I don't. Well, actually, I mean, I do have a soundboard here. I think you can just see.
Yeah.
I think it's just got a load of.
He's done it! There you go.
I don't know is that loud. I think that's probably really loud. I don't know if you can hear that. I have some random I like to use the Martin Tyler commentary. Lines from time to time, and sometimes there's a few random things on there, but I don't have an actual soundboard. No.
So you can't use your sounds yet. You'll have to see it.
Oh, I mean, I've got 2,000 videos and countless live streams. I'm sure if you put the work in and went through all of them, you could find every word and every sentence in some combination. So it take a bit of time, take a bit of work.
Yeah. Now, Flash Tiger has asked, did you race against Theo Makuris when you did a few radical races? Because Flash Tiger says, I think he won the league that year.
So I did a race in 2022 September. He won the championship in 2023, so I missed out. I missed racing him by 1 year, but he was really, really quick. You guys who have played GT7 might know the name. Like, I think he's VQS. I think he's a VQS driver. VQS 74 EO. Looks like Theo. Very, very quick guy on GT7. Doesn't always play. I haven't seen him playing for a while, but he was supremely fast. And in Radicals, he won the championship, and he was very, 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 very quick, and just proves that a lot of the guys who are at the top end of GT7, that does translate onto a track. Those guys are going to be quick in a real car. But yeah, I haven't raced him, but he is supremely fast, and I think he's moved on to even faster cars. I'm not sure exactly what, but his career seems to be going quite well.
Yeah. Because that was the thing. I remember asking you in one of your streams a few weeks ago, has the new physics change on GT7 made it more realistic to real racing? And at the time you had said yes. Is that, do you think there's any specific area that makes that the case, or that stands out, that makes you, see that similarity?
I think the thing that I noticed immediately was the braking. I felt like in the past on Gran Turismo, you could smash the brake pedal and just like whip in the steering, as just turn it in really hard, and you didn't really have to have any finesse as you go into a corner. I think now you have to be much more considered with how you trail brake. So if you steer and brake too much at the same time, it just understeers horribly. I think that is true in real cars. You do have to be quite measured with how you hit the brake, come off the brake, and start turning. So all these techniques do matter, and I think GT7 became a bit more realistic with that. It wasn't a perfect physics change for me. I think some of the Group 3 cars feel a bit iffy. Some feel like unnecessarily oversteery. I think a lot don't feel like they have a connected rear end. It feels like the rear end, I can't feel the grip on the rear.
Yeah, especially on racing hard tires.
If you're on hard tires, like coming out of, let's say, Mount Panorama, turn 1, you need to get on the power early because it's a long straight. You do that and you're kind of guessing. You can't really feel the grip. It felt like F1 24. Just on the rear. So it was a good change overall, but not perfect. But it's one of those things where Gran Turismo, I don't think it's trying to be. I know it's called the Real Driving Simulator, but I think that's just marketing. I don't think it's actually meant to be like iRacing. It's a good middle ground, but it is quite understeery overall, I would say.
Yeah, I was when this physics first changed, and I tried the new. Was it the Radical? No, it was a Honda. It was the Subaru that they had at the new track at Eager North End, and I just couldn't get. I don't know if people were doing the handbrake to get around some of the corners, but I was just no way. I was about 7/10 off the gold time on the time trial, and I just couldn't get anywhere near it. But some people just seem to be natural on it. So it took a bit of getting used to. But I think as you change your driving and you realize you can only brake in a straight line, that definitely helps. Now we've had a question as well from Rue. He was saying, are the radicals as brutal in real life as they are on the game, or is it the other way around? Are they kind of easier to drive?
They are actually quite savage in real life, I would say. I've had like 3 days in the car at Donington. So Donington is quite a fast flowing track. It's not on Gran Turismo, but it's a really good track, and it's a kind of a good track for a radical because you need lots of there's a lot of fast flowing corners, and there is some downforce on the car. And so it's my first time driving a car with like proper downforce, and it's kind of a weird feeling going through a corner faster than you think it can go, but it just grips. So it's a really strange feeling. But the car's great. The cars are amazing. They sound really good. It's kind of got like a motorbike engine, so the procedure of getting the car rolling is quite weird. You kind of go into neutral, then you shift down into first gear, and then you shift back up into second. It's kind of weird. But it's a really fun car to drive. Donington was great as well. I'd hope to get another go one day. But who knows?
It's a great track, isn't it? Oh, is it Bridge Corner? That one when you come down the hill through the sweepers and then you turn right. That one is so easy to kind of draw you in, isn't it? And a lot of people run out wide, even in the touring cars. And when you watch it on the TV, quite often people go out wide and then eventually have to come back on or spin off. But no, it's a great track. So yeah. Now, Flash Tiger has said there used to be a biting point through the force feedback for grip managing oversteer, but it's like that ability to feel the grip limit has gone now since the previous update, or since update 1.49. So yeah, I think that people are saying that maybe they don't get the same force feedback through certain wheels. Is that something that you found?
Yeah, force feedback is definitely different on the game on GT7 since the update, since the physics update, and it took me a while to kind of find some settings that I was happy with. So the settings I had on the wheel didn't really work.
Yeah.
And had to kind of ask a couple of people to get some different ones which felt a lot better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely different. It's not the same, and I agree that feeling that limit of grip on the rear end of the car it's just really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that, because you're sitting there at 940,000 subs on YouTube, which is a commendable achievement, to be able to have that kind of following, how do you find, because you're saying you're at Goodwood, you've been at the British Grand Prix, it must be now whenever you turn up anywhere, people are going to say hello that you probably don't know, isn't it? So can you go anywhere still without being recognised?
Well, I think I mean, firstly, it's a crazy number, isn't it? 940,000. Almost a million, which
Yeah.
is just like a mind-boggling number. But I mean, luckily I can just go about my daily business and not really get recognized too much. It happens from time to time. Sometimes I'm just driving down the road where I live and someone will message me 10 minutes later and say, "Oh, was that you driving down the road?" So people do recognize me, but I think it's at racing events. If I go to Brands Hatch or Silverstone or Goodwood
Yeah.
or something like that, then yeah, it's not like I'm getting stopped every 5 seconds, but a handful of people would have stopped me during the day.
Yeah.
But that's great. I think the reason I am where I am is because people follow
Yeah.
my channel, they enjoy watching it, and without them, none of it happens. I wouldn't be racing at the Nürburgring if I had 0 subscribers. I wouldn't get invited to these events, if I
Yeah.
wasn't getting any views. So I don't want to, and I don't turn people down. If people wants to talk to me or say thank you, I'm always like, oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
nice to interact with people
Yeah.
because, like you say, it's just a number on a screen. But when you go to an event, it's an actual person, and normally they're very complimentary, and it's just very positive. So
Yeah.
I can't be more thankful, really.
So, because you were at Goodwood, now, did you actually have your own stand at Goodwood this year? Because I remember you saying you were at Goodwood, and were you visiting other stands, or was it part of Quadrant, or did you actually have your own facility there?
This year, I was with Bilstein. We were filming a couple of things. They had their own stand, and we had our car there. So I was with the car for a couple of hours. Had quite a few people come by and ask questions and have a chat and get a photo and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to not have to work for the whole day. So
Yeah.
I was able to go around and have a look at all the other stands. That was on the Thursday, which is quite nice. It wasn't too busy because Goodwood can obviously get extremely
Yeah.
busy on the Saturday and Sunday. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm not necessarily a fan when things get super crowded. I like to shy away from that a little bit. But on
Yeah.
the Thursday evening, at 6, 7 p.m., it was just, the sun was coming down.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Most people have left, and it's just like, right, now I'll go and look at everything. So that was quite nice.
Yeah, and the stands are fantastic. We did that the first time I went back in 2013 on the Sunday night when it had all finished up, but everything was still open, so you could go and have a look around, and it was just amazing just to see all the cars, all the racing cars, and just the atmosphere of the whole place was just wonderful. It's an amazing event. Now, Arkies has said he must say he really appreciates that you acknowledge a lot of us small time hobby YouTubers, which is very kind, because you do shout people out. And you always make great comments in your videos about people you've been racing against. So they do definitely appreciate all of that.
I think it's been great. I've noticed in the last few years, obviously we've got a couple of full-time Gran Turismo YouTubers now. Key, Rory, Digit. I don't think Tidgeney's full-time, but he's got such a great work ethic that almost like he is.
Yeah.
But we've got those guys, but then we've also got quite a lot of people now who've come in and trying out YouTube, trying out streaming, trying out Gran Turismo, like Arkies, like Deadeye Del Boy. Oh my god, I can't remember all of them because there's so many guys
Yeah.
now. But it's really good. I love I love watching them. I love dropping into their stream, just saying hi and how's it going. I think it's a really good thing that lots of people are trying it out, trying out streaming, doing it for fun, seeing if they like it. And then, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's great. I just think it's a really good thing that people are trying it out.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it is great fun, and I think what's so nice is that when we many of these drivers like Flash Dagger and Arkies have got up into A+ and more and do some very, very competitive times, get up into the top leaderboards on the time trials, which is impressive. And then it just means that they can get into lobbies as well, where they're racing against top drivers, and it's great to watch because we see how kind of us normal people, or it seems like normal people, have a go and try and attempt to race, which is great fun. For things like for GT7, is there anything currently on the game that it doesn't have that you would like to see come about? Perhaps maybe new tracks or car combinations. What would be your kind of top picks that you would like to see?
Yeah, I think I've always enjoyed more tracks. When cars get added, I do like them. I don't always race them.
Mhm.
But new tracks is something I'm always looking out for. Eigenordvan was it's an interesting track. I've never played GT5 or 6, and so I'd never played it before. So it was interesting to see that. But that was the first track since November when they added Lake Louise. So I think that's a little bit few and far between in terms of tracks. So I'd love to see more circuits. I think Gran Turismo do a really good job with the fictional circuits that they make.
Yeah.
They often do them justice and they feel convincing. So we have perhaps some more of those, but also some classic ones. Midfield Raceway, Apricot Hill, Seattle. There's just too many to name. Special Stage, Route 5, 11. There's just so many that they could add, and I think people would be happy to see them, including myself.
Oh yeah.
So I think we'd be really happy to see that. But also just improvements to the game in general. I think there's lots of little things that could be better. I think only having 16 players online is still a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
If a couple of people leave the race, you can be down to 13, 12, and it can quite quickly feel a little bit empty.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a firm believer that every game that comes out, every metric should improve.
Yeah.
And so GT Sport had 20 players, and GT7 therefore shouldn't be worse. It should be the same or better.
Yeah.
So, 20, 24 players would be much better. I think that's something they could hopefully improve. I don't see it changing, but that would be one of my wishes. And just an overhaul of sport mode, to be honest, because it's basically a copy paste of GT Sport. It hasn't really changed that much. We all kind of bit disappointed some Mondays when the races aren't that great and they're a bit repetitive or the combination isn't that amazing. But there's so much potential for like an improvement of the sport mode, just the amount of daily races, the way that they do them. Could you have daily race D? Could you have an endurance race? Could you have more championships, which aren't the FIA nations and manufacturers? Could you just have something that's always there? Could you have a race where you jump in and you have one lap to qualify and you have to just deliver that lap? Because sometimes I think the qualifying system isn't that great, where someone can just do a million laps. And then they're going to start a pole, but they're not actually the best racer. So there's lots of little tweaks they could make. I think I don't see them really changing it until the next game, but hopefully they do.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Your thoughts on tuning? Are you for or against?
I'm not really the biggest fan of it. I don't really like doing it, especially with the current system where you go into the lobby and then you have to quickly change the tune every time for every race, which is kind of silly. So it feels like a bit of a faff, and I think I would say, I'm making a number up here, but I think like 95% of people don't really probably understand it too well and just probably I just look at Key 25 stream and just copy his numbers. I'm not, I'll be honest, I don't, to me it's just a load of arbitrary sliders. I don't really understand it too well. And I think most people on GT7 probably don't want to put that kind of time in to kind of sit there and go, right, let's have an hour session of tweaking the natural frequency and the suspension and the brakes. Do
you think that would go well on a stream? You could do a stream all about that.
I mean, it could do. Depends how you portray it, but I think for the most part, people probably aren't that interested. I think
No.
it can be a good part of the game. I think there were some daily races early on in GT7's life where there was tuning. I think I seem to remember there was a 10-lap race around Daytona in Group 3 cars, and tuning was involved. And actually, some of the racing was absolutely incredible. So
Yeah.
I would say yes and no. It just depends. For the most part, I don't really like it, but I think it has its place if it's done properly.
Yeah. Now, here's a question for you. If you had the chance, or maybe you've already done it, have you been in a race where all of the above have been where you've been racing against them? For example, we mentioned Tidney, Rory, Key, and Digit. Have you ever done a race with all those streamers in the actual one lobby, or perhaps a live event? Have you ever done anything like that?
We did. I think this was during lockdown. I think it was 2021. We did a couple of YouTuber races. There's a guy called Lewis Bentley who used to be like a world tour level player. Doesn't really play the game too much now, and he set up a couple of events. And there was maybe 16 of us in the lobby.
Yeah.
So we had like Tidney, myself, Rory, Key, Basic Ollie when he used to play, PX Cam or Andrew Vasquez.
Oh, yeah.
There was like and Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Oh yeah. So
there's a good like handful of us in that race. I think we did 2 races, one at Spa, one at Maggiore, and they were both pretty good races.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have done it from time to time, but it just does, that's been years since we did that. But from time to time, Rory's playing a lot, Key's playing a lot, Digit plays a fair amount, but he's normally in a split higher than me. Tidney I meet every now and then. But yeah, I do see the same names quite often. I don't know how big the player base is at the moment. I'm guessing tens of thousands. But when you start getting to A+, you start seeing the same names over and over again. So yeah, I meet these guys quite often.
Yeah, I think would you ever like to do a live event with them? If you could put something on where all those guys, the top 20 kind of streamers in GT7, and you could all have a big kind of live event race. Do you think that's something that you would ever want to do?
That'd be really cool. I think at the World Series events, they do host like a media pro-am, where all the media are there. It's not necessarily all YouTubers. It can be journalists as well. And we often race against each other, but it's a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I'm always open. I don't necessarily have the time myself to kind of set that kind of thing up. That's the issue.
Yeah. We need to arrange that. We need to.
Yeah, this is the thing. It does take quite a bit of time to get everyone on board and to try to get a date and try to get a race combination and try to get all the different things together. It's not as easy as it looks, but I'll certainly be open to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Now, of course, you've done some amazing Gran Turismo events where you were competing against Lewis Hamilton, weren't you? You did that team event a year or two ago, where you were partnering. It was was it the Pro-Am group? I'm trying to remember who was partnering with you on those races that you did that were live.
Yes, so that was in 2020. No, it wasn't 2020. That was 2019, sorry. That was the Monaco World Final. Lewis Hamilton was there. And that was the media pro-am race. But they kind of rebranded it as the big Lewis Hamilton race. Yeah. And yeah, I got put into that race. Funnily enough, I got put into the rig directly next to him. Yeah. Next to Lewis. And we all got partnered up with a pro Gran Turismo player who was there for the World Tour. I think I had Kenny, I forget his surname, but he's from Australia. Economos, I think he was on my team. But the media all start the race and then goes over to the pro. So I was racing against Lewis Hamilton directly, and then he fired me off going through the Les Combes chicane at Spa. So that was, you know what, I'm honoured to have been punted off by Lewis Hamilton in an actual race, legitimately. That's probably better than just having a boring race. So I can honestly say that Lewis Hamilton has punted me off, which is quite great.
That's a good historical bit you can take with you, isn't it? So for lots of the people watching, they'll be wondering, what does it take to be really good on GT7? So what would you say are maybe your three main skill points that people need to really be good at to be quick overall on GT7?
You should probably ask someone like Mikhail Hazal. He's a lot quicker than me. But I think the main.
You're very quick. You're very good on those time trials.
I think my pace is kind of is a solid level, like top couple of hundred in the world, which I think I can get to quite quickly. I think the main thing is just really building up like a bank of knowledge in terms of like references.
Mm.
So, let's say Interlagos, for example. If I jump into any Group 3 car, I immediately know for turn 1 I'm braking about 75 meters before the corner. I already know that.
Yeah.
And if that's too early or too late, you just adapt it on the next lap.
Mm.
And then you just trail it in, get over the curb, don't compromise, don't carry too much speed because you need to get a good run through the right, go over the curb. So it's just like I already know all the track limits, all the braking points. And so I think just building those things up really helps get on the pace really quickly. So just build up your braking points, braking references, and just like understand the track limits. Can I go on that bit of the curb? Because obviously, like center S at Interlagos, you can go completely all over the curb on the second apex, on the right-hand apex. And if you don't know that, you're just going to be losing tenths every lap.
Of time. Yeah.
So it's just building up that knowledge. And I think this is something that I've learned a lot this year, which is in order to get faster, you kind of have to push beyond what your comfort zone. It's really easy in racing to kind of find your level and just drive around forever at your level. This is a lesson I learned at Portimao where I was really consistent, but then the pro driver had a go at me. He said, that's not a good thing. You should be pushing really hard, almost making mistakes every lap to try and work out what the quicker line is. Because if you just keep driving around at a 9 out of 10 level, you're never going to get to 10 out of 10. You need to kind of work out how to do that. So can you brake later? Can you take a wider apex? Can you take a later apex? Can you brake a bit better? There's so many things. So I would say the main thing is, can you just change what you're doing a little bit? Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Try braking a bit later. Try a lower gear. Try a higher gear. Maybe you're scared of getting on the power on the exit of the corner because you think you're going to oversteer. But just try it. And then maybe you'll be quicker. So it's just about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I think that's really important because it's so easy to kind of sit there in your comfort zone and be like, this will do. I don't want to crash. So I'm not going to push.
Yeah. And do you think that certain tech, in terms of what kind of wheel and pedals you have or rig you might have, do you think it makes that much of a difference, or is it still down? If you're a good driver, you can pretty much go quickly in any kind of setup.
I think it matters to some extent. I would still say someone like Mikhail Hazal, who I regard as like the best player in the world on Gran Turismo, he would be quicker than me if I had the best wheel, whatever you think that is.
Yeah.
And he had an entry-level Logitech, let's say, he'd still be quicker than me. So the driver can definitely make the difference. But I think with sim racing, you just have to be comfortable with what you've got. So, I think I'd be slower with an entry-level Logitech personally than I have like the Fanatec here, which is quite a premium wheel for Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
But yeah, the player can definitely make the difference. You don't have to have like top of the line stuff. And I think a lot of people who are maybe like buying a sim rig for the first time maybe overthink it and think, oh, I need to buy the best sim rig, otherwise I'm not going to get to the top level. But I don't think that's true. I think you can get good on, let's say, like an entry level €300 wheel and pedals. I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Now, YT Viewer had asked a question saying, do you ever look at other YouTube channels to get ideas for your own channel?
I think I look at YouTube in general. I watch YouTube quite a lot. I don't necessarily always watch to kind of get ideas for my own channel. I watch a lot of like onboards, a lot of racing, a lot of sport highlights, that kind of thing. But I don't really pay too much attention to kind of like wider trends, kind of like Mr. Beast or
Yeah.
KSI or the Sidemen too much. I don't really watch that kind of
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
But I do like to study YouTube. I do like to see what people are doing and pay attention to different trends that are working and what isn't working. Because the thing with YouTube is that I've got 940k subs. It kind of looks like, oh wow, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you almost never know what you're doing because it's like constantly changing, and you never like quite understand it. I can make a video and it'll get 200k, and I make a video which I think is better and I get 100k views.
Yeah.
And it just makes no sense, and it's all completely up in the air. So yes, I do watch YouTube. I don't like religiously watch it for like research purposes, but it's quite a tricky business to kind of fully grasp and understand because it's just constantly changing.
Yeah. So what's been the best ever sim rig that you've ever played on?
Ooh, good question. I mean, my own one. I really like this one. It's what I like. It's what's good. There was a time when I went to the Veloce studio in London, and they had a sort of, I think it was like a £90,000 simulator. It had like
wow,
a 180-degree curved screen which kind of wrapped around you.
Yeah.
And the pedals, I can't remember what the pedals and the wheelbase were, but they were obviously quite premium. I went on iRacing and just everything felt very good immediately. I think with iRacing, often you have to go on it and tweak your settings for like an hour or two just to make sure it's perfect. But with this rig, it just felt like, wow, I'm actually in a race car, like immediately.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's some rigs out there which, most people aren't going to be spending 90,000 on a rig, but I think to be fair, most sort of, your Fanatec or your Sim Magic or, Simatech or something like that, it's fine.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good, isn't it? That now we've got lots of questions coming through as well. For example, would you ever go into the jungle if they asked you, or go into Strictly from YT Viewer?
I don't think I'd ever get asked to go on those. Would I go on Strictly? Oh, I don't know. I don't really like. I'm not the best dancer. Let's put it that way. I don't know. It depends what the offer is, I suppose. I suppose that's always the case, isn't it? With those kind of programs, it's like everyone would go. Everyone has a price. If they said we'll give you 10 million, then obviously I'll go on it. If it was like we'll give you 10,000, maybe not. I don't know.
That's it. That's the crazy thing. Now, Dutchy has said, will you be in Dortmund next month for the big the European Sim Racing Expo?
Yeah, so the Sim Racing Expo is middle of October, but that weekend I'm racing at the Nürburgring. So I'll be in Germany, but I won't be at the event. I've only been to the Sim Racing Expo once. That was in 2021 when it was at the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to it since. I would like to go. It's been on my mind the last couple of years. I think it would be a good event to go to, but
we need a British one. We need one in Britain, I think.
That would be great.
Do one at Silverstone or somewhere, that would be a great event to do.
To be fair, I'm kind of surprised that Britain or the UK doesn't really have one, because we've got a big motorsport base. We've got lots of racetracks. We've got a lot of people who are into motorsport and racing and sim racing. So I don't know why we don't have one over here. But to answer the question, I won't be at this year's one because of the clash with the Nürburgring race.
Yeah. Now you're hosting a big event as well this Friday, aren't you? Is it with Veloce? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I'm hosting an event with VCO. It's on Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is obviously a game I don't really play too much, but I'm going to be hosting that event. They've got 24 one-hour races. It's quite an interesting format, something a little bit different. I like that they're trying something new, and I'm hosting the first 5 races. So this is something I always like, commentating and just analyzing a race and just like watching it and just seeing how it plays out. And it's always a bit different than obviously being in the race. But it's always quite nice to kind of watch it and just see how it pans out and just see how people race against each other. And that's this Friday, 7:45 on my channel.
Oh, that'll be fun. Do you think it's a little bit less stressful commentating on it, or or introducing it as you're doing on Friday and running through the races than actually taking part? Because it's quite nice being able to watch what happens. Do you find it a little bit less less, I would say, stressful doing that kind of thing than actually racing in a real race?
It depends. I think commentary can be quite tricky, actually. If I'm free just to commentate exactly as I like, it's quite easy. But
Yeah,
if you're working for a brand or there's a brand deal or there's certain requirements, then it can be quite tricky. You have to fit certain things in and say certain things or not say certain things.
yeah,
But for the most part, commentary is great. I love commentating. It's something I value. I think it's one of the reasons why my channel's done quite well, because of the insight or the analysis or
yeah,
the
yeah,
commentary
definitely.
style.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I love doing it, and I think this event will be great on Friday.
Now, I've got a question here from Woody Boy, who has asked it a couple of times actually. So I have taken it on board. He's saying, "Do you like, or what is your opinion on rally games?"
Yeah, I don't really play them too much, um, but I touched upon it earlier that I do like a broad range of racing games. One of my first videos was F1, but back in the early days of my channel, it was all on Dirt 3.
Oh yeah,
So that was a lot of my early videos, and I love that game. I love Dirt 2, Dirt 1, Dirt 3, Dirt 4 and 5, not so much. Dirt Rally was great. Dirt Rally 2 was great.
yeah,
When I was younger, playing Tommy Mackinnon Rally, and I never played Richard Burns Rally, but rally games are great. I think they're a good challenge. I think rallying is just like it's such an art form that I'm
yeah,
not the best at, but I respect anyone who can do those games well. And yeah, I like them, but I don't think there's enough of them. We have some like Dirt. I think Dirt 5 came out a few years ago, and
yeah,
there's a couple
yeah,
of games, but WRC I haven't really touched upon. I think that's the only one that's really kind of consistent these days at
yeah.
releasing games. I played it a little bit. I think it's quite good, but I haven't played it too much.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's very hard doing lots of different games and keeping the channel in one go, isn't it? Because if you do too many different games, it can maybe dilute. Or some people like it, some people won't, isn't it? But you're famous for Forza and for GT7 and for games like that. But we've got a comment here from Shawnzy, who's been a fan for a long time, and he says, "Hi Hugh and Steve, congrats on all the success, Steve." And he says, "Steve, are you more comfortable driving a real race car now that you've had some code browns at the Nürburgring?"
It's a good question. I think around the Nurburgring, I can assure you that it takes a long time to learn it.
Yeah.
I've got a document on my phone which goes over the amount of laps I've done. I think it's like 163 now off the
Wow.
Nordschleife. So I think that's a good bank of experience. But I do think that in racing in general, once you push over the limit a little bit and you think, oh my God, right, that was a bit scary, that was a
Yeah.
bit much, you realize actually you do feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a really scary section of the track called the Stefan Beloff S. When you play it on Gran Turismo, it just doesn't feel scary at all.
Yeah.
But when you do it in real life, you've got all the camber change and all the mighty, massive curbs. And you
Yeah.
think if
They
you
do
hit one of them,
horrendous. Yeah.
your
Yeah.
car is going to flip over, it feels like. And
Yeah.
then you've got all the, I don't know how to describe it. It dips down quite a lot. It's a
Yeah.
bit towards the end of the lap where you go over the jump, Plants Garden,
Oh
you
yeah.
go
Yeah.
right up and left and down a hill.
Yeah.
Then you've
Yeah.
got a really fast right, left, right.
Yeah.
And in the game, it's like nothing. But in real life, it's like you're really jumping over the camber and you can't quite see over it. And it's like flat out if you get it dead right. And so you go through there flat out and it's like, oh my God, that was really on the edge, really
Yeah.
scary. It's
Yeah.
like, right, okay, I feel more comfortable now. I think I could do that again. So you build up your confidence over time. Nürburgring is not a track you go to and you nail
Yeah.
it in the
Yeah.
first 20 laps.
Yeah.
You're just like, even now I'm learning stuff every lap. But yeah, it takes time. It's a scary place. It's a scary track. Racing it toe to toe, traffic, GT3 cars lapping you, lapping slower cars. Like there's so much going on.
Yeah.
But I think with anything, it takes a bit of time.
Yeah. And we've got a very good question here from Scale GT. He says, "Is it possible to learn the details of racing in real life on a sim rig, let's say with a Fanatec, because I have no real life racing experience, but want to get faster and more consistent?"
I think so, yes. I kind of touched upon this earlier. I think that sim racing can teach you a lot about racing, about the way that people race. So obviously you've got, let's take out any other people on the track. Let's just say you're on the track. So obviously you can learn how to control the car and everything like that, and how to lap quickly. And then once you're racing against other people, you learn on a sim how people race. How can you pressure someone into a mistake? How close should I follow to not hit them? How far back can I go for overtakes? Do people give you space when I go on the inside or the outside on lap one? There's all these like different questions you can ask, and you can kind of ask them on a sim, and it does roughly carry over into reality. It's not exact, obviously, but if you've got a good bank of experience from sim racing, I think that knowledge does have some value in the real world. I think, if I jump into a car in 2022 with zero sim racing experience, I don't think I'd be anywhere near as confident as I was with that sim racing experience.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. Now we've got a data question here from Dutchy. Who says he's a bit of a data nerd, and he's curious as to how many watch hours do you get on one stream?
That's a good question. I don't actually know. I don't really have that stat. Let me try and find it. I don't know if I've saved any images of that. It's a good question, but I don't really look at it, if I'm honest. I might have one saved on my. No, I don't think I do.
Not to worry. It's a good question though. That's because it's quite amazing watching. Sometimes you have 4,000 or 5,000 people watching at the one time on your live stream, which is great. And the comments fly. As you can barely read them as they go down, but it must be amazing having. Do you ever get kind of slightly awestruck as to think, my goodness, there's so many people watching? It can be a bit of a distraction. Like, don't read the comments. In terms of when you're racing.
It's not necessarily the number of people watching that is distracting, but I would say, that the chat is popping off sometimes. Yeah. Like I'm looking here at my sim rig, and I can see on my right hand side it's like I can see okay, people are saying something, but I'm going through a fast section here. I can't really look at it, so you have to be really considered with like when you look at chat and when you don't look at chat. But I think I've streamed enough now to kind of understand the nuances of it. My first stream was 2017. Wow. Got countless streams. Probably hundreds of streams that I've done. Over all of those years.
Well, it was always the thing on a Monday night. We all tuned in, and still do now. Now that you're back, it was watching Super GT on all, whether it be GT Sport or more. Now here's a good question from Flash Stagger. He's heard you mention that the M2 might be on the way out, and do you have another car in mind?
Yeah, so I posted yesterday on Instagram. I've got an M2 competition. I just hit 50,000 miles in it.
Wow.
I've had it for 4 years, hit 50,000 miles. So it's quite a lot of miles in that many years. But I wouldn't say it's on the way out. It's a car I've paid it off. I own the car completely. I don't really plan on selling it.
Yeah.
My plan with that car was always to have, I always wanted quite an outrageous petrol car with a manual gearbox before all petrol cars get phased out, whenever that might happen. But this is going to be that car where I'm just going to keep it forever. One day when I'm 78, I can just go for a drive when those cars don't exist anymore. But in terms of like new cars, what to get, I should probably get something sensible.
No.
But I mean, the M2 is quite an outrageous car because it's got a wing on it. It's got a big Remus racing exhaust on it, so it's pretty loud. 400 horsepower. You can push it, and it does slide a little bit if you want that to happen.
Yeah.
I must be honest. I do love Porsche. That'll probably be the brand I'm looking at the closest. Something like a 718 Cayman.
They're nice.
I do really like those cars. I think I've done a few experience days with Porsche now. Did one at Silverstone, did one in Sweden on an ice lake, interestingly, last year. And when you do that kind of thing, you really appreciate how they drive, how they feel. Just amazing cars. So that's what I'm looking at. I don't know if I can really afford it, but that'll be the dream.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. That I mean, there's so many great cars out there. I actually saw one of the new Ferrari four-wheel drives. The new Ferrari SUV that came to my hometown.
Yep, I
And
saw
I
the
was
same
quite,
one recently as well. Actually, yeah, quite an interesting car.
yeah, I thought that would be an amazing car. That, but now we did have a question a little bit early on. Would you ever stop racing if you had a family? In terms of like real life racing, was that something you would it pull on the heartstrings, or do you think you would still race if you had a
Um,
family to look after?
it's an interesting question. I don't think I'd stop racing because I have a family.
Hmm.
Not like instantly. Like, let's say I had a baby, I wouldn't go, right, that's it, I'm not racing. I don't think I'd be like that. Like, I love racing. I always want to race. But I think, let's say as my kid grows up, it depends on like your financial situation and your life situation. I think
Yeah,
it's quite a hard question to answer. Let's say I was well enough off that I could just retire, then probably I would just stop and just
yeah,
then I would let my kid race if they wanted to.
yeah, yeah,
So it's hard to know. It's not an easy one to know. I think it's one of those questions that I think with raising children, it's almost like no one knows how to do it until you have to do it, and then you have to work it out. So I don't really know.
yeah,
I don't think I'd stop if I
yeah,
had a couple of kids. I'd like to think that I could continue and raise them. Obviously, it's quite. I understand that raising children isn't easy. It takes a lot of your time. Going racing is a luxury. So it wouldn't be easy, but hopefully I can still do it.
yeah. Oh, that's the thing. And finally, as we drop, because you've given us an hour already, which is very, very kind.
I'm open to more time if you need
You
it.
know, oh, that's fantastic. And that a few years ago, you did a race day at Abu Dhabi. I remember you drove single seaters, and I'd always wanted to ask you what was it like to drive, because they were pretty pretty fast machines. Were they Formula 3, or they were? I know they were pretty quick. What was what was that like?
Yeah, so this was when we went to Abu Dhabi in 2021. So this was just before the
Famous race.
insane race that was, end of 2021. It was that one. I think I was myself and Max Futrell, who's in Quadrant. We drove the track, and we were, I think, within the first 10 people to drive the new layout of the track.
Oh yes, when they changed it, yeah.
That was the year they changed the layout. The chicane at sort of turn 4-5, they obviously changed that to the corner where Max did the overtake.
Yeah.
And then the weird chicane at the other end of the track, they changed into a long left.
Yeah.
So it was a Formula 4 car. That's the kind of higher cars they have there. And it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. It was quite surreal. It's always quite surreal being on a track which you've seen on TV.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, like this is where things have happened in the past. This is where they where they did it. So it's a cool experience. I would say that the Formula 4 felt a little bit slow because it's such a big track. Some of those straights are really long, so you're on it for quite a while. It feels like it could go a bit quicker, but I think it's a Formula 4 car. It's for the experience, really. They kind of tune them down a bit, so they're not that fast, really.
Yeah.
So maybe something like an F3 would be great. I've never driven anything that quick. But it was a great experience. It was really cool.
That was my next question. If there was any kind of racing car in particular, I know you mentioned GT3s and GT4s, but in terms of single seaters, if you could get a chance, because I know some of these the content creators have been able to let you drive like the old Renault from 2012, the Formula One. For everybody, it cost about £12,000, but they were giving them away in prize draws a year or two ago. Would you, if someone offered you the chance to drive an F12, an F1 from 2012? Do you think you'd be ready? Actually, did you not drive an F1 car a number of years ago?
I drove a 70s F1 car.
That's right.
In first gear around a go-kart track. So yes, I was driving it, but it wasn't really, I wasn't really going for it. And didn't get out of first gear. They told me not to. So, if I could drive a 2012 F1 car, I'd do that. I have someone I know called Dan Gore. He's done like a lot of Club 100 racing with me in the past, and he does car racing. He drove a Williams F1 car, I think from 2012, that kind of time. At Manicourt.
Yeah.
So it's certainly something that you can do.
Yeah.
I think he bought that experience. Like you can do it.
Yeah, pay a few £1,000.
I would love to do it. To be able to say I've driven like a fairly modern F1 car. I mean, that'd be great.
I think that would make for a great video. We need a GoFundMe page for you.
Yeah,
so
I
you
mean, just try and get like a sponsor, maybe just if like Fanatec or someone would drop some cash. I mean, maybe not Fanatec right now; they're in a bit of a interesting situation. But you know, you can feasibly do these kind of videos
Yeah.
if you get like a sponsor or two to cover it.
I'm sure
That'd be
seen through
great.
glass, wasn't it? Well, did Jimmy Broadbent? He drove a Formula One car. I'm sure he did it at Paul Ricard a couple of years ago. I'm sure he got to drive a Formula One car there. Did he not? I'm sure I
I'm not
remember
sure
watching
about
a
that.
video that
I
he
know
did.
Jimmy.
Did
He
not
did the
drive a
same experience as me a couple of years ago at the kart track, and then he drove the
Yeah,
same car at Goodwood Revival this year. But it was only for like an exhibition. It wasn't really racing.
yeah.
So I don't know.
But,
What I would say though is that there's potential out there. There's experiences. There's potential out there. There's people with cars with too much money, too much time, and you know they can give people some drives. But we'll see. Hopefully, there's something like that can happen.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Now, tell me, in terms of road cars, we've often talked about the best cars and the cars you might like, but what has been your experience? What's been like the worst car you've ever had to drive?
Oh, you know what? This happened quite recently, actually. My car was in for servicing, and so I had to get a hire car, and I just bought like SUV. I thought that'll do,
Yeah,
whatever, because my girlfriend and my sister were with me, so I wanted like quite a big car.
yeah.
And they gave me an electric car. What was it? It was like a Vauxhall Mocha or something, I
Oh
think.
no. Oh yeah, though they do a Mocha Electric, which is notoriously terrible. I
And it was
mean,
just like I think they should when you hire a car, you should be able to say, I do not want an electric car. I do not want
yeah,
the faff of having to go somewhere to charge it and
yeah,
do all that nonsense. Because
yeah,
my dad's house was like 200 and something miles away. I couldn't get there on one charge.
yeah,
So it was just
yeah.
like so much
Oh
faff.
no.
I did not
Yeah.
enjoy it. The car was rubbish. You could only drive it at like 62 miles an hour on the motorway.
Oh
Anything
goodness.
over
Yeah.
that, the charge would just go down drastically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was just like constant stress of like, I'm going to run out, I'm going to run out, I'm going to run out. This is just, it feels awful.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't even enjoy it in any respect. So yeah, that was my worst experience, I'd say.
Well, here's the thing. I know someone. I read a review. Someone bought a £31,000 Mocha Electric, and it never worked. Never did the charge. It barely did about 140 miles on a charge. Took it back to the Vauxhall garage, and they offered them £18,000 for it after 3 months. So he had to, because he had the finance, he had to keep it. Yeah, I think they've got a long way to go.
It's an interesting conversation. I mean, we could speak for hours about this. But obviously, you know, like the cars like the Taycan, people bought them in their droves 3 years ago for business reasons, and now they're trying to sell them and they just can't. I think the electric industry just isn't quite ready. I think people are a bit unsure about.
Moment,
it's fine having a new one, or it can be, maybe not the Mocha, but people are just unsure about buying them secondhand. No one wants to buy them secondhand, so their value just drops
cheap.
off a cliff, and it's just not worth it.
I think unless you have a charger at home, it's not. It's difficult to make them work. Or if you do big miles,
I think that's the only scenario really. If you're driving it short distances and you have a charger, then it can be good. Like I wouldn't mind having a Taycan just for darting about. Not that I can afford it, but I can just dart about every now and then. But it's a weird one because the government can try and force us to buy it eventually, but if no one wants it, then no one's going to buy it. So you know, it's a weird one. I have a sense that the whole deadline for petrol cars being phased out might be pushed back because
well, it was going to be 2035.
Electric cars, and they can't do anything.
Yeah, and it's crippling the motor industry, to be fair. But no, it's interesting to get your view on that. I think you'd be a great Top Gear presenter. I think if they had a new series of Top Gear, I think you would be a fantastic. You could be like the old Tiffany Dell. They would give you all the racing cars to drive and the sports cars, and you could do a sim lap as well, and all that kind of thing. I think that would be a great position for you. Now we are seeing in the comments, Arkis has said the most horrible car he ever had was a Chevrolet Matiz. But they are. He said it literally made me lose my will to live. But I have to say, most people do say that the old model Vauxhall Mokka was one of the worst cars they've ever had. That kind of thing. But so, what are your, apart from your big do on Friday? Have you got any new kind of racing? Obviously, you're going to be racing in Germany at the time of the exhibition of the Sim Expo. But have you got any plans for some new racing categories coming up in the next wee while?
Nothing nothing for 100% right now.
Yeah.
I do have a video to be released, which I did earlier in the year. So it might appear as I've just done it, but I raced the Ford Mustang of Alex Brundle.
Oh, wow.
Around Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit.
Oh, yeah.
That was back in May or June.
Yeah.
The video is just going to be coming out now. So that was an incredible experience. I had to learn heel and toe because it's not a technique that I've learned before.
Yeah.
So I've had to go into this car, it's expensive classic 60s Mustang, around Brands Hatch, tricky circuit, home track. So I was really pleased to be there. But you've got a grid of minis and Mustangs, so you've got like the different handling and driving techniques.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure there to try to not crash the car. So that was something that came up. Video will be out for that very soon. But I think the main thing in the next coming months, as we approach the end of the year and start of next year, will be what's going on for 2025. I don't have any concrete plans as to what's going to happen. This year, we didn't find out until January, end of January, that we're going to be racing. So that's the thing. That's the main thing for me to look forward to. Hopefully, it all goes ahead, and we have an amazing year of racing ahead of us next year. I don't know in what car if we do go ahead, but that's the main thing to look forward to. I think there is potential further down the line to maybe kind of venture into maybe buying a race car and racing in Radical like we did the SR1 a couple of years ago. Could I buy a Radical, race it, and then sell it again at the end of the year? And get some sponsors on board. So there's different things in my mind, but the main thing is hopefully getting back into a full season around the Nürburgring.
Yeah, well, that would be great. And if there's anybody watching that would like to invest in Steve, I'm sure with his link in the description there for his channel, if you go onto the community page, you'll get to see. I'm sure that's where the page there with the info there. You'll have your email address where you can contact Steve, and I'm sure he'll be ready to sign up and get you in a great racing series. But no, it's fantastic to seeing what you've done with going in from sim racing into these GT4 cars. The BMW looks amazing when you drive it. It sounds great as well. That and you've got this BMW M2, and you're planning potentially maybe to get something else. And one of the commenters had said, would you ever look at something like a retro mod car? Things like because like Alfa, there's a great Alfa Romeo Giulia that you can get, or a Mark 1 Escort Mexico. You can even get Porsche 911s, like the old classic ones, but they make sure the brakes work and make it slightly easier to drive. Would you ever consider something like that?
It's not really something I've thought about too much. Interestingly, at the previous Nürburgring race at the end, at the beginning of August, Jimmy was there in a GT40.
That's right. Yes,
but it wasn't an original from the 60s GT40. It was a sort of a more modern kit build put together. Still a very valuable car. I think it was like hundreds of thousands of pounds still. Obviously, still an amazing car. But it shows you that you can kind of get an amazing car for a bit less. Obviously, GT40 would cost millions if you wanted to buy a proper one. But
about 60 grand. You can buy them. I've seen them at the kit car show.
But it's not something I've really thought about too much. Maybe, I was just touching upon, like, could we buy a race car? It feels like a kit car. Maybe something like a Caterham. You buy a Caterham, race it in the UK for a year and see how you go. Obviously make videos and stuff on it and then sell it at the end of the year, or maybe do 2 years or whatever. So there's different potential out there. Kit cars is something I'll look into, of course, but I haven't really thought about it too much.
Yeah. Now, you did also manage to meet your kind of doppelganger, which is of course, Alex Albon. Tell us what that was like.
Yeah, I've been wanting to meet him for ages, Alex Albon. This was at the British Grand Prix in 2022. And it was with Quadrant. We had really good access to the race and to the event. We got into the BRDC Drivers Club.
Mhm.
So I don't know, for those who have been to Silverstone, there's like a little roundabout right in the middle of it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then two of the sort of junctions off the roundabout are where most people would go.
Yeah.
There's another turning which goes off into like a little paddock, which is where kind of the drivers stay. And there's
All
the
right. Yeah.
BRDC thing. Obviously,
Oh
you have
yeah,
to have
yeah, yeah.
like you have to get given the wristband and all the
Yeah.
pass and all that stuff to get in there.
Yeah.
So quite lucky to be in there. And I think it was George Russell and Alex Albon were doing an interview.
Yeah.
I was like, right, when that interview is finished, I am going to storm Alex Albon. He's not going to be able to leave. I'm definitely 100% getting a photo with him. I don't care what it takes.
It was brilliant.
You do have to be a bit brave to kind of like, right, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to ask him. I'm not going to have any shame. I'm going to ask him. And I just got the photo, and it was just like, wow, I've done it. I've met Alex Albon himself. And it got like 68,000 likes on Instagram or something, which is like by miles the most I've ever got. So it was a really cool moment. I really enjoyed it.
And what did he say to you? Has he watched you on your channel, or it's
funny enough, he didn't really say too much then, because it was just like, "Can I get a photo?" Yes, done.
Yeah.
It was like a couple of seconds, but we did an event during lockdown because there was lots of streaming going on, wasn't there?
Yeah,
With a lot of the F1 drivers, and we were on a team together. It was a Twitch versus I can't remember the name of the event, but Twitch put together these events where creators face off against each other.
Yeah.
And I happened to be on the same team as
wow.
Alex. So we were in the chat together talking, and yeah, he said that he's been told many times about our likeness by other people. So he's aware. I'm not saying he watches my stuff or anything, but he acknowledged my existence, which is something.
And one quick question as well. With your connections now through Quadrant to Lando Norris, have you ever given him any advice, or has he given you any advice?
He gave me quite a lot of advice at our first karting event together. That video that we made in 2021. Obviously, we're looking at data and stuff like that and comparing his data to mine, and there's lots of things to learn, because that was my first time in an owner driver kart for many years.
Yeah.
So he did teach me a lot that day, because he's obviously a karting world champion.
Yeah.
So he knows how to drive a go-kart. There's no question about that. As for me, giving him advice, not really. I don't think he really ever asked for any. But I haven't seen him in a while, but he's good company. He's a good lad, and yeah, it'd be good to see him again, because it's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, because you've done quite a lot, obviously, with Quadrant. You did lots of big events with them. And what was the kind of craziest ever experience you had? Because sometimes they would get you to do challenges, and you'd put them on a video. What's been your kind of most memorable experience of the Quadrant time that you've had with them?
You know what? I think the best one would have to be, we went to his house. He lives in Monaco now, but he used to live near the McLaren Tech Center. We all went to his house to film a video. It was the Hot Ones challenge. It's where you eat fried chicken in progressively hotter sauces, and it gets very, very hot and very like agonizing. And it's rare for an F1 driver to put himself like well out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
So he's there dipping his chicken in this thing that is basically eating fire. And so there's just an incredible scene of him just like dipping his chicken into this sauce, eating it, and like he literally goes bright red instantly, and then he's just dipping the spoon into ice cream to nullify it. And it's funny, because I don't think F1 drivers really can do that kind of thing. They can't really just go and eat a load of ice cream. They got to be a tip-top diet all the time.
I think there was in
really
the old
interesting
days.
Experience.
They did. I remember Senna and Berger had all these crazy stories. He'd play all these pranks on each other, and they were staying at some place. I think it was in Portugal, and Berger decided to fill Senna's room with frogs because they were next to a golf course. And similarly, Senna was very superstitious, so he always looked for odd numbers. And Berger deliberately put an even number of frogs in his room. And so, of course, when he found all these frogs everywhere at night time after a race, he got the staff to come through and try and clear the room. And of course, they could never find that extra frog that they thought was there. So I suppose they were quite famous for playing great pranks on each other on that kind of thing. But because you and Jimmy do a lot together, obviously, and for your driving for the BMW M4, do you find that there's a lot of fun and games that go on when you hang out with those guys?
Oh, definitely. We don't really. I wouldn't say we like prank each other, and we don't really put frogs in each other's bedrooms. But we definitely have a similar sense of humor.
Yeah.
We can go there to the track. We can be serious, and
Yeah.
we all want to get quicker and better as a team.
Yeah.
At the same time, we can all laugh and joke, and we do. There's not many occasions where I laugh more than when I go to the Nürburgring and race with Misha and Jimmy. Those are some of the funniest days I have. Like they're very funny. So yeah, it's really good, spending time with each other and just having a laugh.
I got a question here actually from Rue. It said, didn't Gerhard Berger try to get David Coulthard drunk before a race? That wouldn't have surprised me. Those were the 1990s pranks. But yeah, I don't think they're allowed to do anything like that now. It's all very businesslike in Formula One. That's the kind of thing. But so if there's a Grand Prix that comes up in the next wee while, what would be your ideal race to go and see?
Well, that's a good question. I would like to watch DTM. I quite like how competitive that championship is.
Yeah.
I'd like to go and watch a DTM race. I'd like to go to Monza.
Oh, yeah.
They're racing this weekend in Fanatec GT3s. But, go to the F1 race would be amazing. I think that's one of the ones to go to.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to do Silverstone. I've done Spa. I've done Austin. I've done Hungary. So I've done and Abu Dhabi as well. So I've done like a few.
Yeah.
But I think Monza would be the next one. Naturally, I think that's
that'd be a great one, wouldn't it?
That'd be a brilliant race to go to. Monza. I'd like to watch World Endurance Championship. I don't think they don't race in Silverstone anymore in that championship, but they do Spa, so that's not too far away from me. So just actually Le Mans. I've been meaning to go this year. Missed the boat on that one, but next year is going to be, I think, one of the biggest years in a long time. Hypercar looking really, really healthy. The grid.
Yeah, it does actually, doesn't it?
And GT3 as well. So I'd love to go next year. I think I'll definitely pay attention to when the tickets come out and try to get myself over for that one.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Just as we come to a close, because I know you've been very kind with putting your time aside to talk to us tonight, and we really appreciate it. What would you like to say to the community that's watching? Because they certainly we are in awe as you come out with your videos and your new experiences as you do. But is there anything that you would like to say to them just now?
I think it's quite a simple message, really. It's just to say thank you, really, for the support over all the years. It's really as simple as that. I think, as I touched upon earlier, none of this happens without people watching the videos or supporting or tuning in, leaving their messages. So that's the main thing. I must say that whenever I've gone to an event, a kart race or an F1 race or whatever it is, and someone's come up to me and said something about the channel, it's always been a really pleasant, lovely conversation. Like, I honestly mean that. It's always just like really nice. Like at the Nürburgring, for example, one guy come up to me and said, I love watching your content with my son and my daughter. We love racing, and you keep it nice and clean, and you have a lot of respect. And, when I hear that kind of message with people watching as a family, that's just like, that's amazing. That's really good to hear. So yeah, it's just been great to have the support that I've had. I feel lucky to have had it. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And one final question. What are you going to do when you hit 1 million? Will there be a special event?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't really kind of planned it yet. I still think it's at least 6 months away. At least. It's probably going to happen next year, but I don't really know. Probably have a very big party.
Yeah.
And have some drinks. But in terms of, like, let's say a YouTube event, I've had some thoughts about what to do. I could tie it in with like a long stream. Let's say I could just say, right, I'm not going to stop the stream until I get 1 million, and I could just be there for a week.
That's quite a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I could lap special stage route X until I get it, and not stop until I get 1 million. I don't know. There's lots of ideas, lots of silly challenges I could do, but it's going to be a massive occasion, massive moment, I think,
Yeah,
to crack that 1 million after so many years of doing this.
yeah,
I don't really
yeah,
know. I just hope that people will be there to watch whatever it is that I do.
yeah. Well, I'm just trying to think because you started streaming in 2017, but you made a lot of videos well before then, wasn't it? I mean, you had your YouTube channel in the early 2010s, wasn't it? I think when you first started.
May 2011 was when I
Yeah,
started the channel and made my first video. So yeah, more than
yeah,
13 years since my first video. I went full time in June 2018, so that's more than 6 years ago now.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
in sort of 2017 sort of time, I was maybe on 50k subs. I hit 100k in 2018.
yeah.
So yeah, it's just been a long journey. Many thousands of videos now, lots of live streams.
And they're all
Um,
truly unique. That's the great thing. Everyone is slightly different. So we love the sense of humor and just the ability to drive really well and get great times and you entertain us every week when we watch you on your live stream on a Monday night and when your videos come out. We always enjoy clicking on them to see exactly what you've been doing and how it all works. But no, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show. We're huge fans, and you can see with the comments there. There's a lot of love for you here in the channel here, and for your community as a whole is incredibly positive. And we hope you can continue on for many years yet, doing streaming and game and live streaming, and of course with your real racing career. And maybe in the future we'll see you race against Tidgday and Key, and we'll put on an event. And you'll get a sponsor as well to do some more amazing racing. But stay on the line if you please as we close the show. But to everybody watching, you've been watching the Hugh Hatrick Show with an incredible special guest. It is Super GT Steve Alvarez Brown. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And if you like what you see, please subscribe and hit that like button. I should have said that right at the start, but there we go. But thank you very much, everyone. I'll finish with our kind of crazy ending. It is drive fast, but drive your bus even faster. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you very soon.
cheers,
Bye
guys.
just
Thank
now.
you.